Hey everyone, today I want to share with you 7 masterful lines from jazz legends. Digging deep into some of the greatest solos of all time is always a fun and fruitful way to get better at this music. You can find all the phrases that we go over today in our brand new resource that we just launched here at Jazz Lesson Videos entitled 80 Lines from Jazz Masters. In it, you'll find 80 diverse and effective pieces of jazz vocabulary phrases, ranging through 10 different jazz greats of all time. All the lines are written in all 12 keys for you to help you further internalize the language and absorb it into your vocabulary. So if you're interested in downloading the full resource, you can find the link in the description below and use code MASTER5 for $5 off. Alrighty, so let's get into the first phrase of today from Bird, the father of bebop. This one is found in the Charlie Parker chapter of the resource. Masterful. So this line comes from his solo over My Heart Tells Me. This line totally works over any ordinary 2-5-1. And these chords found on beats 3 here can just be an implied substitution. So what's going on here? We have a 3-note pickup, first starting on the 5th, and then these next 7 notes here, we start on the root of our chord, D minor 7, and diatonically approach D minor 3rd on the downbeat. And then we have this sort of stair-stepping shape, going up and then skipping down, then going up and then skipping down again till we get on the root. And these 7 notes here, we can sort of see as one unit. So we can classify this as a D minor melodic cell. So now we take this cell and do the exact same thing up a half step in E flat minor, which fits perfectly in this A flat 7, which is a tritone sub that leads into this G7 next. Now we do the cell again in A minor. This gives us notes diatonic to G dominant 7, and now this is really slick. Rather than going up a half step again, this time we go down a half step and do this melodic cell in the key of A flat minor. These notes fit perfectly in this D flat dominant 7, which is the tritone sub that leads into the C major 7. And how he leads into this C major 7, he plays a chromatic approach tone into the 5th and ends it off with a nice melodic shape featuring a 3rd, a 6th, and then a 3rd into the 5. Let's hear all this one more time. Amazing. Let's move on to the second phrase that comes from the great pianist Tommy Flanagan. When I first heard of Tommy, he sort of had like a bad rap because he supposedly flopped his giant step solo, which he was sight reading, which is an unfair judgment. But if you listen to literally any of his other stuff, he has some of the most crystal clear, beautiful bebop lines that I've ever heard. Let's listen to one of his lines that's featured in the 80 Lines from Jazz Masters resource. Masterful. This one comes from his solo in All the Things You Are. Let's break down what's going on here. The first measure and a half features a nice melodic line that embellishes all the notes of the F minor 7 arpeggio by using a descending stair-step melodic motion. And then out of nowhere, for some contrast, we jump up an octave, and then he plays a 3-note enclosure that targets the flat 7 of the E flat dominant 7 chord. And now using triplets and sort of pedaling on this F here, we approach the 5th of this chord and then approach the 3rd of this chord. And once we land on this 3rd, we switch to a different melodic motion of ascending scalar triplets. First from this 3rd and then from the root. And then Tommy lands on this 3rd and just plays a permutation of the A flat major triad, 3, 5, 1. After we make it to this root, we simply just walk up the scale till we get to the 3rd. It's a really beautiful line. Let's hear it all one more time. Awesome. Now let's look into some language from John Coltrane, arguably the most influential tenor sax player of all time. This phrase can be found in the John Coltrane chapter of the resource. Masterful. So what's going on here? This one comes from his solo over My Shining Hour. Over the C6 chord, we play a major 7th and then a 1, 2, 3, 5 cell. And then we have a chromatic approach tone into the flat 7 of a D minor 7 chord and then descend down this arpeggio. Once we make it to the root of this D minor 7 arpeggio, we go right back up it. And then we voice lead into our C major 7's 7. B. And then from here, we have this beautiful melodic rhythm featuring a quarter note and then a set of triplets. And really, it's just decorating going down diatonic thirds. First, you see this B, and then we go down a diatonic third into G and play this triplet embellishment that really decorates this G. Then we go down a third again and do the same thing. Go down a third again, do the same thing, go down a third again, do the same thing, till we finally land on a G. So this is a line that you can do really over any chord progression that is diatonic and based in major. Let's hear all this again one more time. Great. Now for some contrast, let's go ahead and get into some Charlie Christian, a pioneer of the electric guitar in swing jazz. He's got some of my favorite blues lines ever, so here's one of his phrases found in the Charlie Christian chapter of the resource. Masterful. This one comes from his solo over 7-11. Over the D flat dominant 7, he starts on its 5th, and then he goes up to the flat 7. And then from here to all the way 2 measures later on the downbeat of the A flat dominant 7. He descends down the D flat Mixolydian scale, but takes away the root. This results in a really nice bluesy melody. Then when we land on this 5th of our A flat dominant 7 chord, we go up to the root and then play a chromatic approach tone into the major 3rd of this chord, and then simply ascend the first inversion of the A flat major 6th arpeggio. It's simple yet so melodic, which is often the most effective way to play. Let's hear all this one more time. Incredible. Now we're going to study some language from the great Clifford Brown, who has gone way too soon. He was undoubtedly one of the most technically brilliant jazz trumpeters of all time. Here's a phrase that can be found in the Clifford Brown chapter of the 80 Lines from Jazz Masters resource. Masterful. This one comes from a solo over Sandu. So what's going on here? This takes place over the last 4 bars of a blues. Over this 2 chord, we first play a 4-note enclosure around the note F. And then we play another 4-note enclosure around the note D. And then end it off with the B flat. So really, Clifford is playing this as if it's a B flat dominant 7 chord, which is a pretty common technique to ignore the 2 and just address the 5. Then when we get to the actual 5 chord, this B flat dominant 7 here, we switch to the sound of tonic, which in this case is E flat, and we switch to the sound of E flat blues. So the entirety of these triplet figures infused with a few 8th notes and quarter notes are all notes of the E flat blues scale. Clifford plays it in such a beautiful melodic way. So let's hear all this one more time. Excellent. So the 6th phrase that I want to share with you today comes from the legendary pianist and music educator Barry Harris. There are few musicians that played bebop as cleanly and clearly to the level of Barry Harris. So here's a phrase that can be found in the Barry Harris chapter of the resource. Masterful. This phrase comes from his solo over the tune Donna Lee. So what's going on here? Over a B flat 7 sharp 11 chord, which is the B flat Lydian dominant, we ascend an F minor 6/9 arpeggio. And then we chromatically walk our way down to the major 7th of this F minor sound, which is also the sharp 11 of this B flat dominant 7 sharp 11 chord. And from this E, we go down the F minor major 7 arpeggio. After this, we go back up to that G and play this exact same figure again. And then we jump up an octave to the F of the G minor 7 flat 5 chord. Now really what Barry Harris is probably doing here is instead thinking of an E flat dominant 7 chord here, as a G minor 7 flat 5 is an upper structure naturally found within an E flat dominant 7 chord. This is evident because he's absolutely following all of the rules of a descending dominant bebop scale in the key of E flat dominant 7. He starts on the 9 of this E flat dominant 7, adds a passing tone between this 9 and the root, which is an E flat in this case, and then a passing tone between the root and the flat 7, and then just walks down the E flat dominant 7 scale. This allows him the voice lead onto the 5th of the C7 flat 9 chord. Now from here, this is very established jazz vocabulary. We're going to walk down to the third of this dominant 7 chord and then go up a fully diminished arpeggio till we get to the flat 9. Then we dip back down into the flat 7, and with a chromatic passing tone, we voice lead into the 5th of our F minor 6 chord. And from here, Barry Harris is just switching from a 1 to 5 sound. We descend down an F minor triad, and then we descend a C dominant 7. And then we switch again to an F minor triad, this time with a different permutation. And then we go down to an E, which again implies a 5-7 sound, the C dominant 7, and we instead play its 3-4-5-3, which voice leads us onto the root of the F minor sound again. What a brilliant line. Let's hear all this one more time. Spectacular. Last, but certainly not least for the day, let's get into some Cannonball. I love his soulful bluesy sound mixed with virtuosic and sophisticated lines. Here's a phrase found in the Cannonball chapter of 80 Lines from Jazz Masters. Master! This one is the ending of his solo in the tune Dizzy's Business. What's going on here? This takes place over rhythm changes in the key of A flat. This first motif is pretty simple here. Really, we're just playing a 5th and then a chromatic approach tone into the 3rd. And we do it with this fun rhythm. After a few rests, we do it again and it leads us into the next phrase. The first 4 notes of these consecutive 8th notes here is an ascending A flat 6 arpeggio starting from its 5th. And then we go up a G half diminished sound, which is really the upper structure of an E flat dominant 7. So really this is implying the sound of 5. So far we got a 1 sound, then a 5 sound. And right after this, we're going to go down the sound of 1 again. We're going down the sound of an A flat 6 yet again. Then the next 4 notes is going up the sound of an E flat dominant 7 again, this time with a flat 9 that we start on. Then we voice lead onto the 3rd of our 1 dominant 7, and then play diatonic thirds going down. Right before this quarter note here, we have a backwards 1, 2, 3, 5 in E flat minor, which ends up being the A flat dominant 7's 9, flat 7, 6, and 5. And then we play a B natural, which is this chord's D flat 7's flat 7, but really from here through the rest of this phrase is tonic, which is A flat's blues scale. So the rest of this figure here is beautiful use of the A flat blues scale. And it's infused with a surprising major 3rd here, this C natural within this 2-5, which adds a very effective feeling of contrast. Let's hear this entire phrase one more time. Alrighty everyone, that concludes today's video. I really hope this helped, and again, if you'd like to check out the full resource, 80 Lines from Jazz Masters, you can find the link in the description below and use code MASTER5 for $5 off. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, please consider leaving a like and subscribe below as it really helps this channel grow. I'll see you all next time.